warroomsports.com. Get that mobile app.
What up, War Room Nation? This is Jimmy of War Room Sports. Just want to let you know about this new series we have called the NFL Draft War Room, which is starring Fred Purdue of Heavy in the Game Sports. He's an affiliate of War Room Sports and one of our partner shows. And what he's basically done is studied the NFL draft over the last several months. And he sat down with some other draft experts to get some opinions on what's going to happen in this upcoming draft. So this is the first part of this series. There'll be a couple other videos that come after this. But just take a listen. If you're into football the way we are and you want to know what's going on in this upcoming draft, make sure to pay attention to the series and watch these videos. Fred Purdue does know college football. Maybe if he doesn't know basketball, we kill him about that. But he does know his college football, and he knows what's going on in the upcoming draft. So just make sure you take a look at this video as well as the others to follow in the series. And follow Fred Purdue on Twitter.
Welcome, sports fans. Today is February 4th, 2014. This is the War Room Sports War Room podcast. We are talking NFL draft, and to help me talk about the NFL draft, especially that prize position we call quarterback, I have Ben Albright. Ben, tell us where you're from, a little bit about you, and as well as what made you really love the QB position.
Oh, well, I'm from all over. The accent will give away that I'm from the South, but I currently live in Denver, Colorado, where I'm sitting under about a foot of snow outside, so I hope you can maybe bottle up some of that heat down in Florida and send it my way. I worked different websites, started my own for a while, and got kind of tired of the day-to-day operation of running a website. Now I contribute for Yahoo Sports and Pro Football Central, kind of help shape their coverage and stuff. I've also got a job on the business side. I work with the league on the NFL.com website in statistics and analytics. As far as quarterbacks, I used to play the position. I was a quarterback coming up. I just wasn't big enough to play in college. I had a couple of guys come down and look at me and stuff like that, and they said, "Son, if you were 4 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier, we could use you." But there's not a big market for 5'10", 165-pound quarterbacks. So I took to analyzing the game. I love the game, and from there I just kind of just came to analyze the position I love, and that's where I'm at now.
Well, the QB position is filled with great prospects. You can go back as far as the late 2013 season, guys coming in, staying back for another year. You have guys like A.J. McCarron, Stephen Morris, Teddy Bridgewater, Johnny Manziel, the Heisman Trophy winner from 2013. You have guys like Logan Thomas and various others. So we're going to dig into this a little bit. But before we do, we're going to get just a few current topics. Obviously, Johnny Manziel has been in the news a lot for the last 2 years, and recently it's been reported that Texans are not looking at him. What are your thoughts of this topic? I mean, the Texans, that's his hometown, basically. Houston, Texas. It's a very close area. You have Johnny Manziel, a guy that's very exciting to watch on the college field. Not sure how he'll pan out on the NFL side of things, but what are your feelings about Johnny Manziel in this situation?
Well, I think that Manziel is certainly a dynamic and exciting college player to watch, but when you look at him and how he translates to the pro game, that certainly worries me. I'm not a big proponent of his pro prospects. He's a guy who, when you look at it, he's smaller, not as athletic, and doesn't have as strong as arm as Michael Vick. And we've seen what Vick does. Now, granted, he's got the work ethic that Vick didn't seem to have early in his career. It developed later. But, I'd hate to be that guy that has to hang my hat on Johnny Manziel as my franchise quarterback. I love what he does. I love watching him play college football. But he's a troubling evaluation when it comes to how he translates to the pro game. He's a sandlot guy who thrives in chaos. He struggles in the pocket. He throws 50-50 balls to great receivers like Mike Evans, guys that are top 15 picks. He's got an all-American offensive line. The talent disparity and the system disparity that he has versus programs that he faced is another troubling aspect of it. That's a system Case Keenum dominated in. So I'm not. I think that Manziel's pro prospects may be slightly overblown.
I really like what I saw from him this year as far as the college game is concerned. But the problem is, like you said, he thrives in chaos. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He's nicked up a little bit this year. Knee issue, elbow issue. You just never want to see a guy that small really getting injured like that. The one thing I did like about him this year was his patience in the pocket. He really, really made an emphasis to stay in the pocket a lot more. And even in the spring game, I remember looking back and I said, "Wow, he didn't do a lot of running." And obviously, they're not going to let their defenders hit the QB at that point. But he really was restricted. They were saying, "Hey, you got to stay in the pocket, make throws, make sure you know your reads, not be a one read and go kind of guy, because you're going to get killed if you do that." Even at the college ranks, especially being in the SEC with LSU, Alabama, Auburn, and the rest of those guys. So I like Johnny Manziel as a college guy, but as an NFL guy, I have a lot of questions.
As do I. And again, you touched on the frame. I didn't even touch on the size there. He's a guy that's already gotten nicked up in the SEC, against linebackers like, the no names that they have at, for instance, Vanderbilt or Arkansas. What's he going to do when he gets Mack trucked by Patrick Willis,
Exactly. I like his ability to get out of the pocket. It has a Russell Wilson type of feel, but the problem is Russell Wilson looks to throw while he's running. Johnny Manziel looks to just make plays, and you can't make a play on every play. At any coach, whether it's the high school level, the college level, or the NFL level, they'll tell you fight for another day. You just have to get rid of the football, and if you keep getting hit like that, his career won't be long.
His style of play actually more reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger, because Roethlisberger looks to extend the play with his feet rather than get forward yardage like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is looking downfield, and he's looking to run and throw at the same time. He's like, do I have the lane or do I have the throw? Plus, Russ has more velocity than Manziel. But if you look, Roethlisberger stays behind the line of scrimmage. He's not really looking to take off. He's looking to extend the play with his feet the same way Manziel is. They're looking to extend the play with the feet. The problem with that is eventually you have to drop your eye level to get the incoming pass rush, and that you lose track of your receivers. Manziel has quick eyes and is able to look back up, but what that's done is exposed Roethlisberger to a lot of hits over the course of his career, and it'll do the same to Manziel. And the difference between Manziel and Roethlisberger in terms of size is enormous.
Yes, and you said it perfectly. I remember saying earlier this year, I said he reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger sitting in the pocket. He'll sit there when Ben Roethlisberger had a really good O-line, and that seems like it's been a while since he's had one. But he's always been a guy that he sits there, and he'll keep sitting there. He'll just let you keep rushing, and if he has a lane, he'll step up, move out of the way, keep running, or chuck it downfield. And he does a little bit of what Manziel does too. The 50-50 balls are there, but it's not as bad. Johnny Manziel, I just watching film of him and putting together a couple clips, it was like, wow, this guy does throw a lot of 50-50 balls, especially to guys like Mike Evans, who is a dynamic wide receiver. I really like Mike Evans. I'll hold this one for the wide receiver edition, but I might just say Mike Evans is my number 2 wideout ahead of Marquise Lee, simply because of the height and the speed, and also the ability to get downfield. But that's for another day. Moving on from Manziel, you have guys like Teddy Bridgewater, again, Stephen Morris, A.J. McCarron, guys like that we can dig into. I'll let you take your pick on this one. Who are some of the guys that you really like, at least that are not more well known?
Well, of course, Bridgewater I like, but he's he's pretty well known. If you want some sleeper type guys that I like, that maybe you're late day 3 guys that most people don't talk about, you're looking at Brett Smith out of Wyoming, similar guy to Manziel, but he's bigger, stronger, a little faster in the long speed. Now Johnny Manziel is certainly quicker and has quicker feet. But Manziel's got better Smith has better long speed when all's said and done. Out of Wyoming, he of course didn't get a combine invite, much to the shock of many. So we'll see how that plays out or whatever. But he's a guy to keep your eye on. Also, Dustin Vaughn out of West Texas A&M. The guy's got an absolute cannon. Needs total mechanical refinement. He's probably a 3-year project when all's said and done. But he could step on the field, and I could see him throwing the football 70 yards flat-footed. I mean, the guy has just an absolute monster cannon. Spins the ball cleanly and everything else. It'd be nice to see him get picked up as like a priority free agent or maybe a 7th rounder for somebody to kind of sit and develop. When all's said and done, he's big, strong guy, not very fast, but you're looking at 6'5", 230. He's a guy that has the size and the frame to play at the NFL level.
Now, Jimmy Garoppolo out of Eastern Illinois, he really has opened up some eyes, even myself. I really had a chance to see him in a couple games, even in a couple All-Star games in the East-West Shrine game and the Senior Bowl. And every single time you see him, it just seems like he steps up to a higher level every single time. And I really like him. He reminds me of Marcus Mariota, maybe a little bit bigger. I really like his ability to stand in the pocket and just deliver. And he has a pretty good arm. And his downfield vision, when he wants to scramble, he can, but he really has a chance to let it go. He will let it go.
Well, I've seen him on tape at the Senior Bowl. I didn't see him at East West. Garoppolo's actually a smaller guy. He's actually about 6 feet. His hand size is only about 9 inches. He does have a really quick release. I think that's the biggest selling point on him as far as things go. He just gets the ball out so quickly. The problem I have with him is that when you look at the tape, he's a 3-route thrower. He doesn't really scan the middle of the field. He played against weaker competition level up there at Eastern Illinois, and didn't really have to adjust to the game because the system that he had allowed him to put up the numbers that he did, which were mind-boggling numbers, by the way. But when he came time to face tougher competition, of course, Eastern Illinois did not advance to the FCS championship. That was Towson and North Dakota State, which should bring you to another sleeper there, Brock Jensen of North Dakota State. The arm's a little iffy, but man, he's a gamer. If he can get a little stronger, he could be somebody. Garoppolo, the thing about Garoppolo, the ball kind of dies on him at the end. Anything over 25 yards, the ball kind of dies a little on him. He's got a funny grip. He doesn't grip the ball by the laces when it comes out, which is interesting. I've not seen anybody succeed by doing that at the higher levels, but to each their own. I think he's probably going to be a late day 2, early day 3 pick when all's said and done. Somebody's going to look at him, see if they can get a diamond in the rough, kind of smooth out those rough edges that he has, and get him to scan the middle of the field a little bit better. But he's a guy I think that could have success at the NFL level. I just don't buy the Tony Romo comparison most people kind of lazily give to him right now.
Now, there are a couple guys I really like as well. Definitely Derek Carr. I almost called him David Carr. Derek, it's very hard to do to not make that mistake. But Derek Carr, guy, I was kind of not really on. I wanted to see more, especially due to the system that they run out there at Fresno State. But to have 3 1,000-yard receivers, almost have a 1,000-yard back, and only lose 1 game, and really if you turn on the film, the guy makes every throw. I see a lot of Matt Stafford in him. I didn't get a chance, obviously, get a chance to go down to the Senior Bowl and check him out live, but from everything I saw in the practices, everything I saw during games, it was just like, wow, this guy makes plays and he does everything he needs to do. He did exactly what A.J. McCarron, who we'll get to in a minute, did not do, and he opened up some scouts' eyes and made guys reevaluate some things.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Derek Carr. I think he's got the work ethic that his older brother didn't have. His older brother, of course, was on a team that was an expansion team. The Houston Texans had some struggles with building the offensive line, but Carr, he steps into the league as one of the 7 strongest arms. I mean, the guy's got an absolute, got a howitzer. He's got a bazooka. The guy can throw the ball to any length of the field. He's more athletic than you think he is. The system that he played in really kind of hindered a lot of that. You'll see a lot of pop screen type stuff. I wasn't a fan of their play calling, and to be honest with you, the Fresno USC tape was there were several points in the game where I said the offensive coordinator should be fired. He just refused to throw down the seam, even though USC would leave it open for him because they knew he wouldn't do it. It wasn't the quarterback's fault. It was the play caller, and the play calling error was just for these bubble screen, type stuff that, that stuff works at the lower levels of college football, but you can't rely on that 100% at the, when you're playing a bigger school like USC. It's just not going to work. They've got the athletes to snuff that out. So I like Carr. I've got a late first, early second round grade on him. I think he's a guy that really has a chance to succeed at the NFL. I think Stafford comparison is probably right, although he's certainly smaller than Stafford. Doesn't quite have Stafford's size, but he certainly has the arm and the athleticism, the hidden athleticism that Stafford has.
Now, A.J. McCarron, the total opposite right now of what a guy like Derek Carr is, a guy that didn't show up at the Senior Bowl in his hometown, not just his home area like a guy like a Johnny Manziel wouldn't show up in Texas, in a state. We're talking about his hometown. He grew up in Mobile, Alabama. To not even show up is just mind-boggling to me. A.J. McCarron thinks he's a first-round pick. I don't see it. He reminds me a lot of a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, not really a great arm. I remember seeing him coming out of high school. He was already very small from the get-go. I think he benefited greatly from that Alabama system where they run the ball a ton, have a great offensive line. In his time in Alabama, they really didn't play a lot of great competition as well as the SEC has been. The SEC they didn't play the Georgias. They didn't play the Floridas every year. They didn't play those type of teams. Yes, you played Auburn. Yes, you played LSU. And yes, you played Texas A&M twice. But you didn't play that elite competition week in and week out like they say they really do. The SEC is a bit of a different animal. A lot of times, not every SEC schedule is equal. That's a different story for a different day. But A.J. McCarron, I really think he is going to be more of a third or fourth round pick when it's all said and done. I think he's going to get his game picked apart greatly. And when it comes down to it, I really don't think he has the feet for it either.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean Ryan Fitzpatrick is more athletic than A.J. McCarron. If I'm looking at a comparison, I'm looking at a guy from your neck of the woods. We've discussed earlier, Ken Dorsey. I think that's pretty much where A.J. McCarron fits as far as the comparison goes. He's a guy who's elevated by the talent around him. He's got a mediocre arm. He's not overly athletic. And then the real troubling thing for me is that the one thing that everybody hangs their hat on with him is calling him a quote winner. But
it's in Tebow.
Well, looking at the postseason for McCarron, he hasn't acted like a winner. He's a guy who has a chest tattoo of Mobile, Alabama on his, a tattoo of Mobile, and wouldn't show up at the Senior Bowl. The invite, okay, fine. Well, then he says the reason he's going to do that is because he's training for the combine. Comes out the next week with an interview and says he's debating not even throwing at the combine. You can only hide your arm for so long. Everybody knows pro days are worthless. The only reason you go to pro days is to get a chance to get a trip out of town if you're a scout, or to go down there and get interviews with the coaching staff and the equipment guys, the strength and conditioning coaches, things like that. Quarterback pro days and all that throwing and hoopla and stuff like that is utterly worthless. You're there to get the evals from the coaches. So I don't know what A.J. McCarron thinks he's doing. He's certainly not a first-round pick in my eyes. He's not a guy I would have leading my franchise. I think that he's probably going to wind up being a career backup. Much like a heralded guy like Matt Barkley was, last year. I think he's going to be the same guy. Maybe taken a little before Barkley was, probably the third, late second. But A.J. is not a guy that I would hang my hat on at all.
And to expound on A.J. as well, he was quoted as saying that at Alabama that a lot of the players he kind of threw his team under the bus. A lot of the younger guys were feeling very entitled, and I think him being one of those highly recruited guys, I think he might have came in a little entitled as well, but he'll never say that.
Well, he should be thankful for those recruits that came in. I mean, if it wasn't for all those 5-star recruits around him, Alabama wouldn't have been where they were. A.J. McCarron, you're not taking A.J. McCarron and putting him on Louisville and having the same success at Louisville that Bridgewater did. It's just not happening. A.J.'s not that quarterback, and he's a guy who benefited from the talent around him, and now he's throwing him under the bus because the pre-draft process, he listened to a bunch of yes men, and now he's painted himself into a corner where he's not going to go where he wanted to or where he thought he was going to.
Definitely. And speaking of Louisville, you have a quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater who I have been I have a love-hate relationship with. He spurned my Miami Hurricanes for that other school that's coming to the ACC. We're not naming them. And then he turned around and destroyed that same Miami Hurricanes team 3 years later. Nonetheless, he is the only quarterback I have ever compared to Tom Brady as far as his pocket presence. He has a very good arm, and he's a lot more athletic than many people think. He might, I won't say he's RG3 athletic, but he's a notch below that. And the slight frame is something that bothers me a little bit, but not to the point where I'm not going to draft him.
Yeah, well, who I compare Teddy Bridgewater as a prospect to is Aaron Rodgers. Actually, he reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers as a prospect coming out of Cal, where the knocks on him, where maybe the arm wasn't quite as elite. Had the thin frame. They worried about level of competition because the defenses in the Pac-10 at the time were down. Things like that. So I think that the comparison, and I think there's an interesting narrative there that I can get to in a minute between him and Bortles and Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers. I think that's who he compares to most as a prospect. Now, does that mean that he'll become the best quarterback in the NFL and that he'll become Aaron Rodgers? And I say that loosely, but I don't know. But he has that kind of potential. He has that ability. He has those tools, and I'd like to see him become that. I think that he could be that guy. Whether he will or not, of course, with anyone remains to be seen.
And Bridgewater, what I really liked about him is he's very scheme versatile. He doesn't necessarily he can play in a college spread offense, but it's not necessarily his end all be all like a lot of these guys now coming out of high school and coming into the NFL out of college, where they're just you have to develop them a little bit like a Johnny Manziel, who is you're gonna have to start him out really playing in a shotgun offense. Simply put, he's not ready to be under center yet. With Bridgewater, you have the ability to go under center. He can make a lot of the calls similar to a guy like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Peyton Manning, those type of guys. He can run an offense by himself a little bit. And the one thing that really impressed me with him, his toughness. Going all the way back to a couple years ago, going up against Rutgers with if I remember correctly, one broken hand and a sprained ankle. To play in that game and just tough it out and win that game, to take that team on to the Sugar Bowl, winning the Big East, that is impressive to me. And then to go on and turn around and just completely shred a Florida Gators defense that had plenty of NFL starters on it, wow, that's very impressive to me. And if I was the Texans, anyone in that organization that makes any kind of decision, that's my guy. Johnny Manziel, Blake Bortles, any of those guys take a backseat to Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, I'd absolutely agree. Bridgewater's far and away my number one quarterback in this class. It's really not even close. I don't know why a team wouldn't take him number one overall. Perhaps they're looking at maybe a Jadeveon Clowney or something else, but to not take him as the first quarterback would be ludicrous.
Now you have a bunch of guys that are kind of grouped together, and you can kind of expound on Blake Bortles. He's the other guy that really is at the top as well. But you have a bunch of guys. You have the Stephen Morrises, the Taj Boyds, and Logan Thomas, a guy that we've kind of talked about off air that has really rubbed us pretty bit the wrong way. You also have guys like Tommy Reese and the rest of those guys. You can kind of give us a little bit of overview on those guys. Not really big names at this point, guys that may go later rounds, but you can kind of expound on those guys as well.
Sure. Well, Stephen Morris and Taj Boyd are two. Well, all three are really guys I saw at the Senior Bowl. But Morris and Boyd are guys that are going to be late day three guys. They're guys that had a lot of hype early on. They have tools. Both of them have great deep ball and strong arms, but they're wildly inaccurate in the short game. Taj Boyd's another one of those guys we talked about that had a great system and a great cast around him. When you look at Boyd, he's coming out of a proven Chad Morris offense that had Andre Ellington behind him, Sammy Watkins to throw to, Nuke Hopkins on the other side, and a plethora of other talent beneath them. So I think that the hype on Boyd, a lot of the hype on Boyd was born from that LSU comeback in the bowl game, and I warned people about that because for the first three quarters, he was, let's play it mediocre and be charitable. He wasn't good, and he had that fourth quarter comeback, which was nice against a gassed, LSU defense, and that's always great to put on the tape and show the scouts. But let's look at the whole body of work, and the whole body of work shows a guy that struggles to even hit swing passes at times. He's got varying release points. He's got some mechanical issues that'll need to be coached up, and he's really built like a running back. I'd kind of like to see him at running back, but that's a story for another day. You look at Stephen Morris. Morris is another guy who's got a howitzer. He's got a great arm. I liked him coming into the season. I was very high on him. I was looking for him to make that next step, looking for him to make that next leap as a passer, and he just didn't do it. He just regressed. Looking at him at the Senior Bowl, I was it hurt to watch what he was doing. He was a guy who was missing everything. I mean, missing 7-yard slants, and would throw it 5 feet over his receiver's head. I mean, it was bad. He looked like a guy who was just completely out of his depth. I hope a team can get him, sit him, and stash him for a little bit. He's got the tools, if not the size. I'd like to see some team stash him for a couple of years and see what they could do with him, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. That's a late day 3 guy. And you look at Logan Thomas. There's another guy with huge hands. Everybody looks at him and starts drooling, but put on the tape. The tape says otherwise. This is a guy who's just behind the curve as a quarterback. It's a shame that he didn't get great coaching, quarterback coaching earlier in his career through high school and stuff like that, because he's just so behind the curve. When it comes to the position, doesn't read the field well. He's a size and arm guy that people are going to fall in love with, and he's going to be way overdrafted thanks to the success of Cam Newton in the early drafting of E.J. Manuel last year. But he's not as good as E.J. Manuel was in the least, so that should say something.
Now, I had a chance to see 2 of those 3 guys up close and personal a couple times. Logan Thomas, a guy I got to see a couple years ago in the bowl game against Rutgers, and it was awful. That game was raining, it was cold, it was bad for a fan, but it was even worse for him. He throws what I call a moon ball. It just hangs and it's almost like a punt. It's just really bad. And when you have receivers like Mike Davis and Fuller and the rest of those guys out there at receiver, and you still can't throw the football, and everything is either a deep ball or a shallow cross. You can't hit the backside of a barn on a shallow cross. That's a problem for me. I really have my issues with Stephen Morris being, as you can tell, the hat on my head tells you a lot. Stephen Morris disappointed me in more ways than you can really fathom. I really just, and it was I can understand the injury when it came down to, it was an Achilles injury, it was a strained Achilles, and he played through it. Okay, that's great. Duke Johnson comes in with that team, and when that team lost him, he ended up having to shoulder the load, I guess, and they didn't want to run the ball. They put it all on him, and it really didn't. He got exposed, really. Stephen Morris hasn't really been that guy you thought. He progressed slowly from his redshirt freshman year to his senior year, but it hasn't been that major jump. And it was just, you saw the slow start against FAU. Starting out in the season, he threw a couple bad picks, threw a bunch of jump balls. And granted, he played with a bunch of backup receivers. Alan Hearns was at the Senior Bowl also. He was actually their 4th receiver at the time in the beginning of the year, being dropped from the number 1 receiver at a certain point in time in the 2013 season. He had Rashawn, what's his name? I completely lost his name. But that makes him irrelevant. Stacy Coley, Malcolm Lewis, guys like that, those guys are gone. Rashawn Scott is the name I'm looking for. He ended up breaking his collarbone at the beginning of the year, and it was a downward spiral from there. When you're not playing with guys that you practice with all season, all off season, that really hurts as well. But I really saw the real Stephen Morris, especially when you see him going up against teams like Florida State. Those are the games that you see, oh, he looks good against USF. He looks good against FAU, FAMU, and all of the host of other B, C, D level talent that you see Miami going up against. But when it comes down to it, when you're playing teams like Duke and they're locking you up and you can't make a tight throw, that's a problem for me. Taj Boyd, as you said, I kind of saw him as well. I'd like to see what he could do at running back. Don't see that happening. But they ran a lot of design dive plays for him, and almost in a way of kind of like the way Tim Tebow was used in short yardage. It was like they didn't trust their running game, so they just put it on Taj Boyd to make plays. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Boyd was, and that you could tell he was a little run down by the end of the season. I hated to see that as far as that win, and some of the other things that happened to him over the season. That fake gambling story that came out that was a bunch of nonsense. Things like that. I hated to see how his season went. He's a guy I was rooting for because he's a good guy, but he's a guy that. I just don't see succeeding in the NFL. I look at him and I see remnants of Troy Smith, and Smith was a more polished passer at this point. So I worry about his ability to succeed at the NFL level.
Well, And the last but not least, I made sure I saved him last but not least before we get out of here. Blake Bortles, UCF, 1 year, not really impressed. A lot of 50-50 balls like Manziel. A guy that he's close to home, so I got a chance to see a couple good games from him. But really, I see Andrew Luck's body running around out there, but I don't see the mental side, and I don't see the arm strength either. I think a lot of his passes were a lot of luck. A lot of luck was involved. No pun intended. I'm not really impressed with his footwork as well. He makes a lot of bad decisions. The zone read option game is good for him. He needs a running game. He needs a couple years of development. What do you think about Blake Bortles, UCF quarterback?
Well, I think that there's a lot of luck in him, no pun intended, and there's a lot of Fitzpatrick in him, definitely intended. I see Andrew Luck's body with Ryan Fitzpatrick's mind and tools. When all's said and done. Bortles is a guy that's gotten a lot of hype. I just don't understand it. I look at him and I watch some of the tape, for instance, the 2 games against Tulsa from last year. He struggles with 3-man fronts. Anytime you're showing a 3-man front against him, he doesn't know where the blitzer's coming from. He just doesn't. Like, you can tell when he comes back under center, he looks surprised by where the blitz is coming from. He didn't have any problems with teams that played that had 4-down linemen. He didn't have too many problems reading the defenses there. But 3-down linemen, that 34 just and the 3-3-5 from Tulsa really blew his mind. So, that's something that bothers me. This is a guy that can't read defenses. That's a problem. A lot of what he did was throw it up to some incredibly unheralded skill position players there at Central Florida. We mentioned Storm Johnson, who's flying way out of the radar where he should be. Those receivers at UCF are really good. He throws a lot of balls up there that allow them to generate yardage after the catch, and that kind of padded the stat total. So box score scouts are going to be real big on Bortles, but he's not a guy that's, he's not that guy that's out there, with a cannon. He's got a decent arm. He's got an NFL arm when all said and done, but it's not great. It's an average NFL arm. I think he's another guy that people look at the size, they look at the, he's got a bit of mobility, and then they go over and look at Andrew Luck and they say, hey, I've got another version of that here, and you don't. Bortles is a guy that I have graded behind Carr, and I have a late first, early second on Carr. So, I just don't. He's another guy that I think that you can develop, and he can be a serviceable starter in the league. But this isn't a franchise hang your hat 12-year quarterback.
Man, it was great having you on the show. I love talking quarterbacks. Quarterbacks it's the lifeblood of the NFL at this point. If you don't have one, you need to get one, and if you do have one, you better hang on to one. As you can tell, in the Super Bowl, you had a Peyton Manning, couldn't get it done, but you had a Russell Wilson, a guy that no one really thought would be much of anything, but he showed up, and that's what you need in the NFL these days. Great defenses work, but you still have to have a very good quarterback to win it. Ben, let the fans know where they can reach you on all the platforms, as well as what you do again.
Well, the easiest way to reach me is on Twitter at AlbrightNFL. I do some contributions for Yahoo Sports and heading up Pro Football Central's draft section. You can also find me on these Google Hangouts here and there every once in a while if you can stand to look at my ugly mug. And I'm doing quarterback consulting and scouting and coaching for some of the guys that some of the guys you'll be seeing playing on Sundays soon, and some of the guys you'll be seeing playing on Saturdays soon. So.
All right, Ben, it was great having you on here, man. Definitely, I'll be hitting you up on Twitter. We'll be going back and forth throughout this draft process. Looking forward to a very interesting 2014 NFL draft.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
No problem, brother.
It's the war room with 5 nights at the round table. 5 Philly guys, the first